Along a slow, clear river in a small village lived an old farmer named Thomas and his wife, Grace. Their cottage was simple, its roof made of straw with a small garden out back, where chickens pecked in the yard. Every morning, Thomas and Grace walked to the river with a wooden bucket to fetch water. They had done this for years. Thomas had once been strong and quick, but now his hands trembled slightly, and his knees ached when he climbed the hill. Grace's hair had turned gray soft as a cloud, and she moved slowly now. But her eyes stayed bright and clear. One hot day, Thomas found a gourd growing in the garden. It was large, smooth-skinned, and surprisingly light. He cut it, wiped it clean, let it dry in the sun, and tied a cord around its neck. "Look, Grace," he said proudly. "A fine gourd bottle," Grace smiled. "It's lovely, Thomas." That afternoon, Thomas carried the gourd down to the river and set it gently on the water. It bobbed up and down, happy and free. Thomas laughed like a boy. "Grace, look how it dances." Grace clapped softly. "The river is kind today," she said. But as Thomas reached for the gourd, a strange thought crossed his mind. "I wonder," he said, "if I could hold it under the water." Grace looked at him. "Why would you do that?" "No reason. Just to see if I can." Thomas pushed the gourd beneath the surface. It slipped from his hands and popped back up. He tried again with both hands. The gourd twisted and fought him. Grace chuckled. "It wants the open air," she said. "It's just a gourd," Thomas grumbled, feeling a flicker of pride rise in his chest. "I'll keep it down this time." He took a deep breath, pushed the gourd under with all his strength, and it shot back up higher than before, splashing water across his shirt. Grace shook her head, smiling. "Its nature is to float, Thomas." "Its nature can learn," he said stubbornly. He tied a flat stone to the gourd's cord. "Now it will stay." He lowered it into the water. For a moment it held still. Then the stone slipped loose, the cord came undone, and the gourd burst upward again, bobbing as if laughing at him. Thomas's face reddened. "Why can't I just—" He stopped. The question startled him. "Why can't I just what? Control the river? Control the gourd? Control the fears that rise in my heart at night?" He didn't speak these thoughts aloud, but he felt them deeply. Grace watched him with quiet understanding. She stepped closer and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Thomas," she said softly, "look at the water. You're struggling against something that was never your rival." Thomas gazed into the river. "Let it go," Grace whispered. Thomas loosened his grip, and the gourd shot up, free at last. Grace laughed, and this time Thomas laughed with her. They sat together on the bank, watching the gourd spin and drift on the small, playful waves. After a while, Grace spoke. "Do you remember the nights we couldn't sleep, when our son was away?" She asked. "We pushed our worries down just like you pushed that gourd, and they always came back." Thomas nodded, remembering the long, silent nights, how the harder he'd tried to push the fear away, the more stubborn it had become, just like the gourd in the river. "When I finally let the fear move through me instead," Grace said, "that's when I found peace." Thomas looked at the water, and something in him softened. They walked home that evening without having won anything, and it didn't matter. The next morning, they returned to the river as always. Thomas dipped his hands in the cold water and wiped his face, and the chill woke him fully. From that day on, whenever worry rose in him, Thomas would picture the gourd. He would say gently, "I see you. Your nature is to float. I don't need to hold you under." And the anxiety would rise, drift and pass, carried away on the current of his mind. The neighbors began to notice a change. "Thomas seems lighter," they said. "Grace looks younger. What medicine have you two been taking?" Thomas would simply point to the river and the little gourd floating there. Some understood. Others laughed, not yet ready to. That was fine. Understanding rises to the surface in its own time. The chickens kept pecking. The garden kept growing. Thomas and Grace grew older still, but their hearts stayed soft and open, like the sky after rain. They stopped trying to grasp the sky, stopped trying to press it down. They simply let it be. And that was the lesson they taught everyone who cared to listen. It is easier to let go than to push things down. A peaceful mind doesn't fight the river. It watches the gourd rise and fall, and learns to breathe with the water. When we stop holding our worries under, they stop pulling us down. They pass and we are free.